all of you. So today I have Arvina and Soumya with me. They'll take you through their journeys across the national law colleges. Arvina is from NUJS and Soumya is from HNLU. They'll be talking about their journey, starting from CLAT to the National Law School, to how their life at the National Law School has been, about law as a career, and everything that you would like to know. So what I have done is, whatever questions that all of you have sent, okay, I have compiled them and I have sent them the list of questions. So based on whatever questions you had, I had asked both of them to go through the questions, and they would be answering the questions as I asked them. I would like all of you to mute yourselves and also stop your videos. Okay? So we are ready to begin. Perfect. Soumya, am I audible, clear? Arvina, am I audible, visible?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Perfect.
So
perfect.
Just a second, bro. I can't find your video.
Okay.
Yeah.
So starting with their introduction, students, I have Arvina. Now, Arvina is a 2020 graduate from NUJS Kolkata. Arvina, she cracked the CLAT examination in 2015 with an All India rank of 129. She was the second topper from Jharkhand. Now she's also a college topper. Besides graduating in the top 3 of her class during her time at NUJS, Arvina was a senior associate member of the at IDIA, member of the Legal Aid Society, and the Recruitment and Placement Committee. She will be joining as an associate at LLN Partners, one of the top law firms in the country. LLN is basically Luthra and Luthra. A job she secured in her 3rd year itself. Apart from her love for spicy food, Arvina is also a fan of science fiction, documentaries, short films, and she loves Friends. I have Soumya also with me. Soumya was from a pure science student. So a lot of people say, should science students study law? Soumya would be one of the best answers. A pure science student, she decided to pursue her career in law, and she studied really well for it. She cracked the CLAT examination along with Arvina. Both of them are friends, batchmates. 2015 with an All India rank of 716. She graduated in the top 4 of her class from Hidayatullah National Law University, Raipur. On the non-academic front, she has been a part of the Samanvay School program of the Legal Aid Society and the member of the Recruitment Coordination Committee. She will be joining as an associate at Singh & Associates, New Delhi. She loves quizzing and is an avid reader. She describes her 5 years law school journey as memorable, a place where she learned so much and made friends for life. So this is a short introduction of both these students. I had basically a pleasure of teaching them way back in 2015. And believe me, I found them extremely committed towards their goals. So one thing that you can learn from these two NUJ's NLU graduates today is passion and perseverance helps you in achieving any goal that you wish to achieve. So I'll be beginning with both these students. I have put all of you on mute. So any question that you may have, you can very well put it on the chat box. We'll answer all these questions towards the end of the session. Okay. So my first question is to Arvina. Arvina,
hi, hello everyone.
Visible and audible to you?
Yeah.
Okay, Arvina. So I have these students joining me in. So we are there on Zoom and on Facebook Live as well. So first question first, because a lot of people in Jamshedpur, as we were discussing, are not motivated towards law. So with Jamshedpur as a mindset that we were talking in terms of, what motivated you to choose a career in law?
Okay. So I'm afraid that this answer won't be like extremely like motivating for others, because honestly, personally, it was a sort of like an elimination based method for me, right? I was there in DAV studying bioscience, and at one point I was pretty sure that मुझे ये नहीं करना है, मुझे वो भी नहीं करना है, and by ये and वो I'm pretty sure we know like what I mean, right? Like engineering and medical was something that I really didn't want to do. So law as a career was always something that I would say did not take much seriously till at a very later point of time, because it was obviously interesting to me, but like right as you would find with like a lot of students and their parents who wouldn't want their like kids to like have a serious thought about law as a career, but still like a friend introduced me to CLAT, and I went through like the exam pattern, etc., and then I familiarized myself with the curriculum of like the national law schools and the opportunities that lay ahead, and that sort of clicked with me because I've always wanted to, it always seemed interesting to me. And after having like gone through this entire process of like, oh, you know what, is an interesting line of
Okay. Arvina, I think your internet connection is.
you
Huh.
know and that discipline that not many people actually tap into because they're not aware then by the idea of pursuing law as a career. And that is how it began, and eventually am I visible?
Yes, Arvina, now you are perfectly audible.
Hello.
Okay. Yes, Arvina, you can continue if you want. Okay. Soumya, I'll ask the same question to you. What I asked Arvina, because Jamshedpur I find again as a place with the number of students taking up CLAT being low. What motivated you? Soumya, am I audible, clear to you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
So,
just like Arvina said, I also kind of had an elimination method. My brother was keen on doing engineering, and naturally all my friends in my school also. And I had decided pretty much in 8th that I don't want to pursue engineering, but I really wanted to do some technical or some professional course, and I didn't just want to do a simple graduation. So I would say that my father played a very important role in this journey, because he himself is an LLB, but due to certain situations in his life at that point of time, he couldn't pursue it. And so he always kind of encouraged me, told me stories of how the freedom fighters, they were all mostly lawyers back then, and how it's an ancient profession. So he only introduced me to CLAT. He showed me a newspaper article telling that there's an all India level exam. And over the next few years, I researched about it. I found out about the CLAT, the other exams, NLUs, and the kind of campus they have, and the status of NLUs in India, and also the job prospects, the various careers after law. However, I started my preparation a little late. I was pretty much sure that this is what I want to do by 11th, but I kind of stalled it. I kind of procrastinated, and I took it up only towards the end of 12th, which is something that I would suggest to the other people who are in 11th or 12th, or who are aspiring to do CLAT. I would tell them to make up their minds quickly, because this is the time to make up their minds, because if they prepare from earlier on, they wouldn't have to drop a year, or this would be something that they'll surely be able to crack. So it's better to make up your mind earlier and start your preparation as soon as possible.
Perfect, Soumya. So Arvina, I'm audible, I believe.
Yes, you are.
Okay. So as a law student now, you have entered law school. Now, as a law student, what have been your best moments at NUJS?
Okay. So, right. There have been many such occasions where, where I had tried out things for the first time. Like with NUJS, there have been. Am I visible and audible?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. So right, like I did debate in my school, but like mooting and like client counseling competitions or like writing academically, etc. All of them like were new to me. So some of them really clicked with me, and some I didn't quite like, even though it was like hype. Like mooting was one such activity that I did try, but I didn't quite like find it something that I would like perhaps enjoy a lot. But at the end of the day, like when I look back, it's not like those activities and how I did in them. It's obviously the experience of each one of them, like that make me realize that the process of starting and doing something new, and how you do it with like a bunch of students who are all like you in a place when they have never done something like that, to make friends and you sort of get to know things better, and those experiences in themselves have been very enriching. But if I still have to like pick up like one major memory that I quite cherish, would be like my time as a member of the RPC for my batch. Okay, so like every batch has their own RPC, recruitment and placement committee, and they do like coordinate with internships, etc., for their batches, right? Like, but in fourth year, we have our recruitment program. It's known as Day Zero, and it's a 2-day thing. So in fourth year, the RPC has to manage this entire issue. Oh, there's another thing about NUJS, that it's 80%, almost 80% student run. Like the administrative involvement is kept to a bare minimum, right? Like they are there to help you out, but be it like setting up and running like a worker welfare fund, or running a mess committee or anything, for example, the entire recruitment process, it's like entirely student run. So we had to do that, and we were obviously very scared, because it was some event which was being conducted at a very large scale, and from getting to getting the university to release the funds for this entire recruitment program, to making a list of things that we need to buy, to calling up the HRs and taking appointments for the partners who want to come and recruit like our fellow batchmates, to making sure every room is like clean, every facility is properly available. There were a lot of things that could go wrong, and we were the first time we were doing it. Of course, our seniors were there to help, so were the juniors, but still it was like a 9-member thing that we were doing, right? Like a 9-member group of students who was conducting this entire thing, and we were able to like do it successfully, and obviously the happiness to see like your batchmates, and lots of them who are very underconfident, thinking that probably they'll not end up with a job, coming out of the room with multiple job offers, and you having contributed to be something to this entire process, was something that, like, yeah, it was something I really, really cherish.
Perfect, perfect, Arvina. So having helped your seniors getting up jobs is, I believe, would be a very relishing feeling. Okay, so I believe your juniors helped you get one this year. Okay, Soumya, the same question comes to you. As a law student, what has been your best moment? What is the thing that you relish as a law student at HNLU?
So, as Arvina said, when you go to a law school, there are a variety of co-curricular activities. Jamshedpur has a culture of co-curriculars. They have fests. All the schools have one-day fests, and I used to be really active in these activities. However, a law school kind of presents different kind of activities that are new for you. So, as Arvina said, having a chance to participate and trying all the new things is surely an experience of a lifetime. And one such thing is moot court competitions. For those who are new or who don't know what they are, it's basically it's a kind of a mock court setup wherein you are the lawyers. You're given a case and you have to argue, and there's a set of judges in front of you. And the entire setting is that of a courtroom. All the colleges, all NLUs and other colleges also, they have separate moot court halls in their college. We also have a few of them. And the entire setting is that of a courtroom. There is a high level seating for the judges, and there are podiums for the lawyers. There's seating area for the other people. So, and you have to appear in full black coat and white shirt and everything, in full formals. So the kind of practice that's there in HLU is if you have to participate in any moot court competition, you first have to fight at the university level. You have to fight with other teams of your own batch or other batches to qualify and then represent your university. So those are called challengers, and they are kind of a very big deal in our college because that's the ultimate your first entry to that event, because moot courts are considered to be very prestigious among law schools. So I participated in a couple of them. As Arvina said, I also kind of thought after a while it's not my cup of tea, or it's not where my liking is. However, I did try, and I participated in a few challenges, and I cleared a few of them also. So that feeling of success, and all your batchmates are sitting and they are listening to you argue, and you argue for a full 30 minutes, and there's a grilling question and answer session with the judge. So it kind of gives you a real life feeling of how things are going to be maybe after 5 years. So that was one of the best moments of life at HNLU. Also, secondly, I kind of decided I want to go into the corporate field, and I started applying for internships at law firms. So because of my internships, I had to go and stay in Mumbai and Bangalore and Delhi for 1 month, and living there alone, finding a PG and going to office every day in formals, getting accustomed to the big office culture for 1 month. So that is also something that that experience I was able to have experience that because of HNLU. So the internship experiences are also some of the best memories of my law school life.
Perfect, Soumya. It is really nice listening to all of you with all these experiences almost 5 years later. Very good, but very well done, I would say, both of you. Arvina, the next question, I'll have it for you. So after having studied law for 5 years, okay, what is your most important learning from NUJs?
Right. So first, I would like to talk about two major things that I think will be sort of immediately useful for people who would enter law school, like our audience. So first thing would be, I realized it, and I would also obviously recommend you all that you should definitely try out academic writing, right? So mooting and debating, etc., they are good for your communication skills, and you should definitely try them out. But for my personal experience, one thing that I really found to be like very enriching in terms of how you learn to research, how you learn to formulate your arguments, how you learn to work with your, like, you know, a co-author if you're co-authoring, is legal writing. Okay, from like right from the beginning, where like when you sit down and you start finding an area of law. Like I was in the NUJS law review, so the whole process was a bit, you know, properly streamlined for us, where we'd have sessions in which we had to come up with topics and get those topics vetted, and then we sit down to look for a topic in which we are supposed to write. So at the outset, I'd also like to clear this out to everyone that it's very different from like what we've been writing till now, right? Like at school. So when we sat down, we realized that there has been a lot of stuff that has already been written on a lot of stuff, and it's very difficult to find that angle of novelty on which you want to, like, you know, supply some sort of clarity or own 2 points. So that process, and then coming up with arguments, right? It takes 2-3 days to up to a week, and then if you're co-authoring it with someone, you are supposed to, like, you know, get your point across, get their, understand their point, then agree on arguments, research on those arguments, structure those arguments, and then come up with like a 5 to 10K, you know, word ka ek document. That in itself is very valuable, but the entire process is something that teaches you a lot of discipline. It teaches you a lot of patience to be like, you know, how to deal with that thing. And I think these two qualities, like discipline and like your research skills, basically will help you a lot in becoming like a good lawyer. And apart from that, the other things that I learned were a bit general. They could be used in life also, not like just in law school. Is you know, ask for help. Like I'll tell you, like I'm an introvert even now, but I was like a bigger introvert and a very different kind of introvert when I joined school, right? And as Soumya mentioned, she was one of those people who did participate in, like, you know, citywide things and all. I did a few of them, like, but they were mostly inter school or something and not like on a large scale. So if if like you are one of those people who are like, like you're shy, or like you feel like probably you won't get the kind of help that you need, I would recommend you all, when you enter law school, please rethink, like do ask for help. I realized it that people are a lot more nicer, a lot nicer than you sort of expect them to be. It's a pleasant surprise, right? And there's a lot of things that you will learn and you need to learn, because you're entering a place where there are 4 batches of already done each and everything that you would want to do as a first year, right? So it's like a resource. You need to recognize it, and you need to be able to shed that initial shyness and go for it and ask for help from your seniors. They have literally helped me from like, selecting my project topic, to do my project, to giving us notes, to helping me with my mood problem, to coaching you for debates, and like coaching you for writing, and just generally, like they are a good bunch of people, and you need to know how to and when to ask for help. So do that. And another thing would be recognizing that opportunities in law school are a lot. Like if you don't make it to your say one committee that is really really good, and you've heard a lot about that committee, all the cool smart people are in it, and you really want to be a part of it, and sometimes it doesn't work out, maybe a lot of reasons, but it doesn't work out. That is not the end of the road. Like you literally cannot complain about, oh, there are few opportunities in law school, because there are many. Like I literally know people who weren't part of like any committee, etc., and they started their own committees come 4th year or 5th year, right? You just need to understand and keep going, and there will be a lot. If you don't make it to A, please make sure you do try out for B, C, D, right? And that is something that will definitely come back and like help you. And the last thing, and I think it's the most important thing also, so till now we were always taught that having fun and working, these two sort of don't go hand in hand together. And guess what, they're wrong. Like they've been wrong all along. Like, but probably till school, yeah, it is kind of true. But NUJS as a culture, we are a bunch of people who like to celebrate at the drop of a hat. Like we would just celebrate and celebrate. And it was like a shocker for me, because I used to look at seniors who were really good at what they did, right? Not just academics, not just like co-curriculars. They were like seriously all-rounders, and these people knew fun. So it's all about like managing your time and effectively using your time. So do not miss out on the fun in your law school, because it'll be one of the most like wholesome experiences of your lives. And yeah, these are the few learnings that I did like would like to share with you guys.
Perfect, Advina. So I believe you are celebrating. You've learned the art of celebration at NUJS. Okay, that is really good to hear, because in these times, if you know how to celebrate life, so that is really a cherishing feeling. Okay, the same question to you, Soumya. What has been your most important learning from Hidayatullah National University?
I believe all the academic aspects are kind of covered by Arvina. So I'll move on to some other. I'll try to give it some other angle. Studying in a college for 5 years, you are not just studying there. You are basically living there. It becomes your second home. And HNLU is a residential university, and we had single occupancy rooms right from the first year. Nowadays, the juniors, the first years have twin sharing rooms. So the first most important learning that you learn right from the first day, even before the classes are started, is how to adjust with a roommate, how to live with a roommate. You might not be friends, you might not hit it off, yet you have to live with that person for 1 year. There's no provision of changing of rooms. So the most important learning that you start right from the hostels is, because studying in a college is an overall experience. It's just not going to classes, it's also living there in the residential university. So you learn how to adjust with your roommate. You have to take care of your room. You have to, your mother is not there to wake you up. You have to wake up yourself. You have to go to classes, and you have to take care of your meals, of your health. And in general, 5 years, you'll experience a lot of highs and a lot of lows. And in all those times, you have to keep your strength together. You have to experience all that and fight all that alone. So the most important learning that I from HNLU or from any other college, I believe, is that it makes you independent, and you learn how to adjust, you learn how to fight, how to sustain, and how to survive at the end. 5 years is a really long time. A lot of people can lose their sanity. So the most important learning is this, that it makes you really independent. And on the academic front, of course, a lot of subjects are taught in the classes. And this is such a field where, apart from the theoretical aspects, you get to learn a lot practically also, by doing the moot courts and debates and all these exercises. And because NLUs generally, all the law colleges have, it's not mandatory, but it's uh, recommended to go on internships, to intern wherever you want, be it firms or companies or with lawyers in courts. So I started interning right from my first semester. I have more than 10 internships. So I'm sure Arvina has the same case. So this is something which is a culture in all the NLUs, in all the law schools, that people go on a lot of internships. This is one more very important practical aspect of law that I have learned. And lastly, the atmosphere in a law school is, I feel, a little bit different than other colleges, because it's very it is such a kind that it makes you vocal. It makes you get out of your shell. It makes you raise your voice against wrongs. It makes you aware of your rights and duties, and in general it makes you really legally aware. So at the end, it surely builds and shapes you, and it makes you grow into a responsible citizen.
Perfect. So if I have to draw two messages from whatever both of you said, I would say celebration and self-reliance, other than being academically good.
True. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I completely agree with Soumya on this point, that the one good thing that's like when you look back comes out from your law school experience is how self-sufficient you've become in these 5 years. So yeah, that's a very
Okay.
good observation. Yeah.
Okay. So Arvina, another question. Coming down to the law front, what sort of companies they visit the NUJS campus, or the law campuses, or NUJS campus? What sort of companies are there?
Yeah. So first, I mean, these are the big firms that we all talk about, like corporate law firms, right? Like we've all heard about them. And this is something that we knew about like since our first year, because that was like a major attraction. So yeah, all the renowned names like Shardul Amachan, Cyril Amachan, Khaitan, Luthra, all of these firms do visit, and they recruit. But apart from that, you'll discover like not just corporate law firms, there are litigation-based law firms also, which do visit our campus. And if you're someone who wants to litigate, but at the same time, want like a firm setting, so there are litigation-based firms that come, Desai Devanji, and like other emerging litigation firms also. And apart from that, we do have like international consultancy firms like McKinsey coming to recruit us in our 5th year. And it is like for people, say, who want to do something different apart from like their law. They want to combine their law degree with some sort of like a finance, twist. So for them, it's a very good opportunity. And banks also do visit. ICICI banks been visiting our campus since like around 5-6 years to honge. And then government companies like Gale, SAIL, they also visit. And we've been trying to get SEBI on board as well. And like various clerkship, positions. I mean, they do not obviously come to recruit, but we do get intimated like about recruitment being on, etc. for such positions through like our alumni network and via like our RPC. So yeah.
Perfect, Veena. Now, Soumya, one question for you here. Which part of law? Like, let's say when I'm saying law companies now, law as a field of study. So, which part of law do you find to be the most intriguing, and why? I would ask you.
When we all studied in school, there are a lot of things that we still question about, that why weren't we taught those particular things in school, how to do taxes and how to go in a bank and what are the procedures in a bank and things, the practical stuff that nobody teaches us. So I feel the part of law that is most intriguing is how practical it is. In all the 5 years, you learn a lot of subjects, variety of laws, and you learn about acts that are being passed, that are being contemplated by the government, and you learn about landmark judgments, names of judges and the judgments that they have given. over the past few years, and the judgments that have shaped the current legal scenario of India. So these are the things that you study in books and you hear from your professors and everything. But this is not just limited to the campus of your college. If you go out, if you step out and you go for internships in whatever places, in firms or under some judge or under a lawyer, you'll find the practical application. I told you I interned at Patna High Court, and at that time I was studying IPC, Indian Penal Code. And my lawyer used to tell me that you can go and sit in any courtroom that you want. It's up to you. You have to sit and you have to observe and you have to tell me. So because I was studying IPC, I used to always go to the criminal court, the criminal division bench. And it was not something that I couldn't understand. It's to understand all the things that the judges were saying, that the lawyers were arguing, because it all related to whatever that I was studying, all the sections and all the cases, all the laws. So this, I think, is the most intriguing part of how being a theory subject, being a social science subject, it's still so practical and so relatable, and you find it all around you. You read newspapers, you watch news on the TV. It's all there. It's you wouldn't feel you're learning something alien or something that has no practical application. So this, I feel, is the most intriguing part of law.
Perfect. So I'm saying law is full of practicality. It deals with people, so it has to be full of practicality rather than technology, which a lot of people find abstract, I would say. Okay. Now coming down, like everyone here, as the audience is basically class 11, 12 or 12 pass students, people who are looking up to take up CLAT as an entrance examination, and since both of you have been toppers from the city, I remember 2015, people had called me up recently, who are the people who have done well. So I remember having given photographs, and your photographs, as far as I can remember, were put on the newspapers. So, and today talking to you with being toppers from your respective national law universities, again, a great feeling. Now, what I would like from you now is basically to recount some of your experiences during your journey of your CLAT preparation, so that children out here, they are able to learn something from your experiences. So, Arvina, I'll ask questions now related to CLAT to you. Now, the first thing would be, how did you prepare for CLAT? Whether there is an examination, taking the examination into perspective, how did you prepare for CLAT? It's an old question, but would be a very relevant answer now.
Yeah, so I was a Career Launcher kid, right? So obviously Career Launcher was like one of my primary sources. And yeah, I found that their material was never such that you sort of drown in them. After every class, we were given like sheets, exercise sheets, and that sort of help with like whatever you learned and all. So revise whatever you learned. So yeah, I did rely mainly on the material that like was supplied by Career Launcher. Apart from that, internet, like, and I don't think I need to say this to you guys, that make the best and most effective use of internet, and it's the best resource that there is out there, right? So yeah, these two, but certain, if I had to stress on certain aspects more than the others, I would say that Career Launcher ka ek unke portal, student portal mein, they used to have this sectional tests. I'm pretty sure they still do, right? So these sectional tests were something that were most beneficial to me. And I remember having talked about this with Soumya outside class, that we had one of these mocks, right? And you handed over these scores in like envelopes or something. And I remember not having done well at all. And I was really worried, and I was talking to Soumya, and Soumya was also like, yeah, dude, you know what to do and all. So I was like, hey, what do you do and all? What do you do apart from like classes? And she told me that, you know, she used to. Then I went back and I realized that, yeah, like these are really helpful. And from there on, there was no looking back, because I really found them beneficial, because it helps to identify your weak areas. And it is all about that, because question level is like not of CAT level or anything. You just need a lot of like identify your weak areas, practice and revise those areas. So sectional tests help with them. From the internet, I remember having used a lot of these, like there are a lot of CA websites now, but like use one good source to supplement whatever you learn in your classroom. And I also remember there used to be these SAT preparing websites. They used to supply like word lists and all. So I use them for my vocab a little bit. You can if you want. And I did not use too many materials because I think that first they confuse you a lot. Second, they eat up your revision time, which I think is like very important. And apart from that, there are two books that I did use. One for legal reasoning, it would be AP Bhardwaj, though I wouldn't recommend it per se because the pattern has changed and it was an okay book. Apart from that, I have one book that I really recommend you guys to try and practice would be MK Agrawal that I did. I found it like extremely useful, and if you can get like a copy, it would be if you can catch hold of one copy, I would recommend that. Apart from that, mock tests. I mean, nothing better than mock tests because as many as you can take, and obviously review your mock tests and work on the weaker areas. That was something that I roughly followed.
Okay, perfect, Arvina, perfect. So mock tests is the key to doing mock tests, sectional tests, testing yourself on a regular basis is basically a key to keep yourself updated and sure on your path to success in CLAT. So that is one good idea that I would like to pick up from whatever you are saying. Soumya, the next question
Yes.
for you.
Yes.
This is one question that a lot of people have asked me. A lot of students have asked me. How to manage school studies and CLAT preparation?
So as I told everyone that I dropped a year. I was a little late in starting the preparation, and I joined a crash course after 12th. And then I decided to drop a year and enroll in a 1-year program at Career Launcher. So I feel CLAT is such an exam which doesn't really, in which the subjects or the areas are something that is uh, it's not something that you don't know or are not accustomed to. It has English, maths, GK, reasoning. These are things that you know. You just need to get accustomed to the current pattern, to the pattern of the CLAT, and you just need to practice, as Arvina said. So the best way is to start your preparation as soon as possible in 11th or in 12th, so that you can go at a slow pace, but it will be a steady pace. You will be in touch with the preparation every day, and the best way to manage school studies and the preparation is to make a timetable and have the dedication to adhere to it, that and try to allot at least 1 to 2 hours every day for the preparation, because you won't think that dedicating you're not dedicating a lot of time towards the preparation. And of course, if you have some school exams or a test or something, you can adjust the number of hours, you can decrease this and increase that. But 1 to 2 hours every day or at least 5 days a week is something that will keep you motivated. It will help you in the GK section also, because learning all the current affairs of the past 1 year in just 2 or 3 months in a crash course, or at the end towards after your boards, it becomes really difficult. So you are in flow, you are in the motion set right from say March or April, and 1 or 2 hours taking out 1 or 2 hours, I don't think that will really hamper your school studies. Also, if you plan on joining a coaching, then in our times we used to have classes 2 days a week, 2 or 3 days a week. That's the maximum number of classes. So accommodating that with your school tuitions, I don't think that also can be a problem. So making a timetable and adhering to it and giving at least 1 to 2 hours of practice every day.
So basically, slow and steady wins the race. So you have to be steady and you have to be slow. You don't need to be rushing out to things, but you have to be steady. Is what is the key to maintaining a good timetable between school studies and your CLAT preparations. If I'm right, Soumya, this is what you are trying to suggest.
Yes, sir.
Perfect, perfect. So let's say in a week, if you have to give a number, if this many number of hours students should study or children should study, what would be that number?
I think if you're studying every day, then 1.5 hours is all right. But one day that you're really free, like on a Sunday or a Saturday when you don't have tuitions or you don't have to go to school, you should dedicate at least 3 to 4 hours for solving a full length mock. I feel you should solve a mock test every week. So 4 hours, why? Because the time that you spend solving a mock, you should spend the same amount of time analyzing it also, analyzing, correcting, and noting down where you have went wrong. So 1.5 hours of study every day, and 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours of time for a mock per week. I think that should be sufficient.
Perfect, perfect, Soumya. Now, Arpina, the next question for you. Like, I don't know how many of you are aware that the GK pattern in CLAT has changed. So, Arpina, am I audible to you?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So, presently, but two things first. First, how did you prepare for the GK section of CLAT? And secondly, would be with respect to the change pattern of CLAT, how should students go with the GK section?
Right. So, firstly, how did I prepare for the GK section? Right. So, GK is something that you can't decide that one day I'll sit and I'll finish like 30 days ka pura. I mean, you can do it, but you wouldn't enjoy it, number one. And secondly, it'd be very difficult for you to like be in the loop, as Soumya said. So you have to be, GK is one subject that you have to be regular with. Otherwise, you won't be able to connect this to the other. And half the GK is being able to connect and being able to update what you've already learned, right? Like CA section at least. And for the static, like static, you basically have to learn like, by heart them, and you have to constantly revise them. But for the CA, I did follow the internet. Like I used the internet and like a yearbook or something I did use. As for the changed pattern, and also I'd like to suggest that you guys can definitely download like one of those apps for GK and keep using them. And Career Launcher, they also have this weekly tests, right, for GK. So use them and maintain a notebook in which you not only like if you're not going to make notes every day from whatever source that you follow, I wouldn't recommend like reading. Like if you're reading a newspaper, too good, very good. But if you're not, don't be like scared, because it might be difficult to manage like a newspaper, whichever source that you follow every day. Just make sure that you do it weekly at least. And from whatever tests, whatever answers that you get wrong, you update in your notebook, right? So I used to follow like a notebook system. And as for the changed pattern, I did go through it, and we were just discussing how they made it like a comprehension type of a question now. And for GK also, you have to like spend quite number of. And GK was one like section of the test where you could attempt like multiple. Exactly. If you know it, you're not spending too much time. Within a minute, you can do so much. But even for GK, now I have to spend a lot of time like reading. But one good thing that I figured came out of this entire new changed pattern is they have clubbed static with current affairs. And that is one good thing, I would say. Why? Because it's easier to recall static when you're sort of connecting it with current affairs, right? So yeah, it's like you go about your preparation as you would, and just make sure that whenever you're reading current affairs, do connect them with static. Keep going back, keep referring. And whenever you're reading about static, if you're reading about say some organization, UN organization, just check who is the present leader, or where is its headquarter. Did they have some meeting in the last 1 month, 1 year? So just try to connect both of them. I think that would be something that would work for the new pattern.
Okay, so while looking at the present, keep revisiting the past is the mantra to do well in the change pattern of CLAT.
Yeah.
Okay. Soumya, I'll ask you the next question. How would you tackle the legal reasoning section of the CLAT paper?
I went through the new pattern. It's completely changed. It consists of long paragraphs and associated questions. So I feel it's the legal reasoning section is also somewhat similar to the English section. You have to read a paragraph and then you have to answer the following questions. So here the key is to practice and to follow a two-step process, like read it once in normal speed and then go to the questions, then go back again and read it once more, this time a bit slowly, and understanding and carefully analyzing the words. And you have to keep in mind that all the answers are there in that paragraph itself. You have to just look for it, and of course there would be some areas where the answer isn't there. You have to apply a little bit of reasoning, but for that the best option is to keep practicing, solve the sectional mocks for legal reasoning. from available from Career Launcher, or you can, if you want more material or some different kind, so you can search for that online. There are plenty of sites now available. And back in my time in legal reasoning section used to be considered as the tiebreaker for deciding the rank. I think that's the same even now. So you must definitely put a lot of effort in legal reasoning, try to solve as much as you can. But at the same time, you shouldn't be afraid, thinking it's a new thing for me. I am not accustomed with the legal legal knowledge, legal words at all. And if a paragraph comes and it's about some act or some bill which you don't know about or which you haven't read, you shouldn't be afraid. You shouldn't be scared of attempting it, because you should just then, if you don't know what you are reading, you should just treat it as an English comprehension passage. You should just read it like that and try to find the answers, because all the answers would be there in that paragraph itself. So this, I think, would be the way to tackle legal reasoning.
Okay, the beautiful eyesight would be the key to do well in the legal reasoning section. Okay. Arvina, I'll ask you the next question. Like how to go about with the logical reasoning section of the CLAT paper.
Yeah. So this section of the paper used to irritate me too a lot, because, I mean, let's face it, it's the most unpredictable, and you really you don't know, like you can't look for a concrete answer. Nobody gave you a concrete answer, and used to frustrate me because, but one thing that I figured might be useful for students is first go through the your syllabus, or pick out the topics that they are like sort of asking. You can use past year paper, and of course in the and like whoever your faculty is, get all the topics, and while you're solving mocks or you're solving like questions from that topic, there'll always be 1 or 2 or 3 types from a particular topic. Say you're solving syllogs, or you're solving puzzles, or even for like arguments and assumption based questions, there are always like some types, 1, 2, 3 types. Figure out those types and practice each type, so that it's very easy for you to identify quickly when you are in the hall that, oh, this is type A, like this is this type of question, and I remember we have to go, like the solution is to go this particular way. So that, I think, will cut down like a lot of your time in the hall, so that you're not nervous, and you can identify, even if the question is new, you can identify the pattern and like identify the type, right? And with that, there is no two ways about it. With logical reasoning, the only solution is to practice a lot. Like all these short tricks and tips and whatnot you get these days, like it used to make me go mad, because I wouldn't remember them after a point, and it used to add to my confusion, because I could never use them when I'm solving a mock, because like I don't know, like because you don't understand the concept well, it's very difficult, and you don't want to risk on the accuracy factor also, right? So what happens is, first you go through the trying to apply the trick and whatever, and then nahi banta hai, and then you are going back to the original way, you end up wasting a lot of time. So try to practice so that you know the concept, and just attack the question on the day. So yeah, practice and practice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Practice is practicing different types of questions would be a good headway to solving the logical reasoning questions.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect, Arvina. Soumya, the next question for you.
Yes, sir.
So the English section. So how to go about with the English section, and that is one, and the second is a lot of students have been asking me how to increase the reading speed with respect to the English section and with respect to the entire CLAT paper.
Yes, with the change pattern, you need to have a good reading speed for the entire paper, because all the sections have paragraphs. So how to increase the reading speed? A lot of people tell you that you should read the newspapers, you should read books or novels. However, the paragraphs that are being asked in the paper, they just not need to be read fastly, but they also need to be analyzed and understood. So when you read, what happens when you read a book or a novel, you may read it fastly, you can complete a book in one day, but there are no follow-up questions to analyze whether you have understood what you have read or not. So to increase the reading speed, first, if you have a reading habit of reading books and novels, that is very good. But if you are new in this, you want to increase your reading speed, I would suggest to solve these English section mocks. Solve, these are called reading comprehensions, right? So solve as many RCs as you want. You can find a lot of them online, even if they are of CAT level or some other exam level. All exams have RCs. So even if you think the difficulty level is maybe higher than CLAT, but it will help. It will be a good practice session for you, because reading those paragraphs and then answering the questions correctly would ensure that you are not only reading it fast, but you are also understanding what you're reading. So that is basically the key to help you solve not only English but reasoning and legal reasoning sections also. It can help you solve three major sections of the paper. And one thing that I want to tell you, is because the exam right now is online, as far as I know, it's going to be online. So a lot of people have the habit of reading books or novels, and they just get very uncomfortable reading on a screen, on a computer screen or whatever. So I would suggest, even if you are in the habit of reading newspaper, you should read that particular news in the websites. Like all the Times of India and everything has their own websites, so you can read the news from leading newspapers on their websites, or you can read the news from GK websites. So the essence is to keep practicing reading online, like on a computer, because we don't realize that it's something that we understand on the day of the exam, because you're reading on a screen and you're not able to mark the questions, you're not able to scribble something. You have to read and you have to remember. You cannot just write anything on the screen. And a lot of people who wear specs or something, their eyes start paining also after reading for 2 hours. So while it is important to read to increase your speed, you should also start reading online. You should start reading on a computer, because this will help you solve a dual purpose, because the test is going to be online. And with English section, yes sir. So English section, earlier I think this pattern is a better pattern, because providing a paragraph is ensuring that the answers would be there in the paragraph. Even if you don't find it at the first go, you can go and look. It's not something that you need to know, or it has to come from somewhere else. It's there in that question paper itself. And many a times it happens, I've seen some sample papers, like there is some fancy word in the paragraph and they are asking the synonym for it, and you have never heard of that word ever. But you can go back and like what happens when we read books also of famous authors and everything. It's not that we understand all the words. We just understand what the author is trying to say, because we are reading the preceding words and the succeeding words. You get a tone of the sentence, and by that you can understand the meaning of that fancy word. So I feel the English section right now is a better pattern, and as is true for all the sections, practice is what will help you in acing this section.
Okay. Perfect, Soumya. So with an online examination, you need to practice it online, even though your eyes get teary. Let's put it this way. Okay. Now, the most important question, because here I have a lot of people who are fearful of mathematics. So the Arvina and Soumya, both of you have clear CLAT, and so I would like to take your view with this, both of your views. The first I'll ask it from Arvina, and then the question goes to Soumya. Maths carries 17 marks in the current pattern. Okay. How important is the maths section score? With respect, how well should you score in the maths section, and what impact can it have on your CLAT rankings?
Okay. They have reduced the number of questions. Am I right?
Yes. Previously it was 20. Now it is 17, 16, 17.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's still important. Every mark is important. And with maths, I think what becomes most crucial is like, an extreme balancing act between accuracy and time. And sometimes we take it like, sometimes when we see the question and we're like, oh, I've done this in class 7 and I know how to do it. I'm going to do it, and you end up taking 2 minutes. It is not the point. They're not trying to check whether you know ratio and proportion, right? They try to check whether you do it within a certain set of like within like a particular time interval. So don't take it upon you to like solve that entire section, because there's no trophy waiting for you. So what you need to do is, as you are comfortable, like assess how comfortable you are with maths as a subject, right? And talk to your mentors, and come up with a target for yourself. Like say your target can be 12 out of 17, 10 out of 17, 15 out of 17. Set a target and try to practice in the mocks that I wouldn't devote more time than what I have set. And the accuracy that I'm aiming at is 12 out of 17. That is enough. If you are sort of, making up for lost like 5 marks here by attempting 10 GK questions, right? So as per your comfort level, set a target and try in your mocks to increase your accuracy up to that level. And even when you see that there is a question that I probably can solve if I just put my mind to it, don't over sort of shoot your time that you have set for math section. That is very important for maths. And as for the sections in which you can score, it really depends on what makes you comfortable. Like I really understood and I got the concept for like ratio, percentages, simple interest, right? But at the same time, like number series or something like that, I really like, I still now, it makes me very anxious and nervous because I could never wrap my head around them. So just obviously the point is to make sure that whichever point you're strong at, you make it like very like stronger. And at the points where you're not so good at, just try to like probably, scooch by. And yeah, that would really depend. Like you do a SWOT analysis, which sections you're strong and which sections you're weak. Set a target and just practice sectional tests. Yeah.
Perfect. Somewhere the same question I'll ask you. The math section. A lot of students are fearful of mathematics. What would be your advice to students, and how would it impact the CLAT rankings if a student decides to forego mathematics?
As Albina said, some people are really in the they want to they think, they look at a question and they think that I have solved this and I really need to solve all the questions, and it ends up eating a lot of their time. So these are one kind of people, and the other kind of people are, they are so scared of maths. They from the beginning itself, from entering the hall, they think that I'm going to leave that section. It's 20 marks. I'll not even look at it. So in that scenario, you tend to miss some really easy questions of percentage or simple interest, which you can just look at and you can solve in your mind also. So my suggestion would be to not be very scared of the mathematics section. It's basic 10th level. Of course, if you haven't practiced and you don't have some streams, do not have maths in 11th and 12th, you tend to go a little rusty in your calculations. But of course, if you're studying at Career Launcher or you're preparing on your own for a year or so, you would be in touch with maths. And earlier, what I feel how this pattern is better than the earlier pattern is because we had 20 questions and all the questions were different from one another. Some were ratios, some were simple interest, and we had to start our mind for a question, stop it, give the answer, then start it again for another question. But here in the paragraph type of questioning, one good thing is that you have a fixed set of data. Like the data is similar for around 4-5 questions. The questions maybe asked will be different, but like if there is a problem that there is a party and this number of people went and this number of people had this number of drinks and everything. So you have a fixed set of data, that number of people 100, number of drinks 20, and for that fix of data you have to work around that and solve 4 to 5 questions. So in a way it kind of saves your time also. You are concentrated more. You don't have to switch on your mind and then switch it off for the next question like that. But again, at the end, I would like to say that because the legal reasoning is the tiebreaker section and not the math section, so if you really feel that it's going to take a lot of time and you really feel not very confident or uncomfortable solving, then you shouldn't waste your time. You should move on to the next question. Of course, if there's time, you can come back to it later.
Perfect, Soumya. Now, the next question, and that is a very, very important question, is that a lot of people are Albina, this question is for you. Like a lot of students right now have started feeling jittery, nervous. The exam dates have come out. CLAT happens on the 22nd of August, and SLAT is there on the 27th of July, and other dates are also coming up. So I have received a few phone calls in the last few days. What to do? I'm feeling very fearful and nervous. So
Yeah.
my question to you would be a very, very simple one. How can I eliminate my fear a day before the exam? I'm exactly reading it as the way that I received it. How can I eliminate my fear a day before the exam or a week before the exam, let's say?
Yeah. So, okay. So there are two questions which are sort of similar. One that I can see was like the strategy for 30 days, right? And should we tackle that first because it will be like, in flow. But if you want me to answer this question first, I can. Hello. Hello.
Arvina, I've lost your voice.
Hello.
Arvina?
Yeah. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, Arvina. Now you're audible.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'll go ahead share what I did a day before my exam. So my center was in Calcutta, right? So a lot of time I spent in obviously like trying to get everything right, and I was moving it from Jamshedpur to go there and all. So uh, I remember going through my CA notes a lot because I mean that is the easiest to revise. You can't like obviously sit with like logical reasoning or like legal aptitude and be like, oh mess up, aaj dekh leti hu. So and CA is one section which you tend to like a lot of facts and all. So I did revise my CA notes and you can brush up like your formula or something for maths and all. But the first thing that you should do on the day that you wake up, like before exam, is to make sure that everything is in place. Everything, like it can go wrong in the last minute, and I've faced like certain such situations. So just make sure in advance everything that you need for the exam is in place. After that, just yeah, like revise a little bit and like you can't relax. Like everybody will tell you to relax or like watch a movie. It would sound stupid to you because you can't, and I neither could I do it, right? And it's very difficult to relax. So I can't like give you an advice which I didn't follow. So, but one thing that is extremely important, and I would like you guys, whoever is listening to me, to take it very seriously, is when your parents tell you that you should sleep before exam, please follow that because I can't stress how important it is. Like your brain needs a lot of like it when it is functioning under that hardcore pressure for like 2 hours in an exam center with like so many like foreign like people around you, it needs to be on focus mode and it can't function properly if you are like so jittery all night and if you've just spent the whole night studying and you're just unknowingly sort of hampering your performance during the exam. So do get a lot of sleep. It might like seem counterintuitive to you guys, but it is very important that you don't compromise on your sleep a day before exam, and obviously like be healthy.
Okay, so healthy and a lot of sleep. So eat well, sleep well, and do well. Okay, Rina. Soumya, the next question for you. It is again related to the examination, like how to know which question not to opt for while after having read it.
One method that I followed, especially for big long paragraphs, was as I said, a two-step process. That is, firstly, reading it very casually, normally as you read a newspaper, and then going to the questions, reading the questions and with the options, and then going back again and reading it more thoroughly, slowly. So the key to understand whether you should leave this question or not is to decide after the first reading. After the first reading you feel that you're having doubts, you're not really comfortable in answering the questions feel really alien. It's like they weren't in the paragraph that you read, and you feel at least 50% of it was something that just went above your head and you couldn't understand. So my suggestion would be that this is the cue to understand that this is a question that you should not answer, you should move on. But obviously you should try to come back to it later if you have time. But because time is of essence in this particular examination, along with accuracy, so even if you spend a lot of time trying to understand and you end up with wrong answers, then it's of no use. So after the first reading you should all the people, they kind of get an idea that whether this was something that went into my head or not. So after the first reading is the step where you should make a decision, and very quick decision, whether to read it once again or whether to go to the next question.
Perfect. So if you don't understand a question, simply leave the question, but you have to read it once.
Yes, of course.
Okay. Arvina, the next is a very, very important question for you. Since all these exams, CLAT happening on the 22nd of August, so all people would be all ears when you are answering this one. What should be the strategy for the last 30 days?
Okay, so this is good. Okay, so I'll be honest, what I did was, and I think you should have probably done it by now if you haven't, but I hadn't when I was preparing. So there's still time, don't worry. Identify your weak areas. You have to be honest with yourself. You cannot like take it like as an ego that, oh, no, I do know it. It's just that aaj is wale mock mein mera thoda luck kharab. Nahin. The whole purpose of the mock is to identify which are your weak areas, right? And if you have identified those areas, also note how much time you're taking, whether when you're solving the sectional tests, whether time management is a weak area for you, right? Or if you're able to solve all the math questions within time. So that is an indicator. Pick out your weak areas, and the last 30 days, just practice and revise. Revise and practice for all those areas. And again, like, it would be great if you could take additional mocks also, and take mocks to sort of help with that exam day pressure, exam day anxiety jo hoti hai. If you have already gone through that 2 hour period where you can sit still for 2 hours and concentrate, that helps a lot with exam day stress. And when you're going into the hall and you're sitting, you feel like, oh, I've already done this, and you're in the zone. It doesn't seem like it's very like new to you, and your brain doesn't suddenly get very anxious. So yeah, and revision, I've already said it, but I'm gonna again like repeat it. Please do make sure that you revise thoroughly. Like, even if you feel like I'm going to remember this, there will be times when you would feel like, oh, I know this, but I'm so confused between these two options, and you're going to end up like taking a lot more time than you should be. So when you revise, that sort of time wastage is something that you can eliminate in your paper.
Okay, so how many mocks would you recommend for all the students in the last 30 days?
At least 10, I would say. At least.
So every third day a mock?
Every third day could be a bit more, because you like, I don't know, like, you shouldn't be so bored with it that when you go for the exam, you're like, I don't want to give another exam. But yeah, like, you should be extremely thorough with it. Like, yeah, like maybe throughout, as Soumya has pointed out, throughout, like every week, probably you should try to take one. Here you can maybe like, double that or something. That way you can easily reach 10.
Perfect, Arvina. And about the current affairs section, how should I go revising the current affairs section in the last 30 days?
That is
the section where a lot of students get lost.
Yeah. So current affairs section, see, if you have been maintaining notes, then honestly you don't need to do much, right? So what happens is, there are PDFs and all like that are available, and you can just go through them, and all you need to do is supplementing your notes. And there are daily quizzes that are available on various apps. Take those quizzes, and you wouldn't get confused if you have been regular. That is the key to it. Like, you just keep on like reviewing everything that you've written, update it by day to day, like, quizzes that you're taking, and it shouldn't be a matter of confusion on the day, because you've been regular so far.
Perfect, Arvina. Now, Soumya, the last question for you. What should be a decent score in the mocks, so that we can be sure that, yes, this NLU that I am targeting, I'll be there into it?
I feel a decent score really depends on the kind of difficulty the mock has, because sometimes some mocks are really easy. The level of difficulty for all the sections is equal, and sometimes it's really tough. It's one particular section, like the reasoning or the legal reasoning, it's time taking. There are 2 pages long paragraphs, and then it's the difficulty level is also high. Like, what happens with the IELTS paper, generally 1 or 2 sections, the difficulty level is really high for that particular paper. So a decent score really depends on the kind of difficulty level, but obviously to get into the NLUs, I would suggest out of 150, a decent score would be 100 or above. And also the people who are just starting their preparation, or they are just starting giving their mocks, they shouldn't really worry about getting 100 in the first go, because that is not something that is going to happen. You will start with a 50 or a 60, even if you are a topper at your school, or you're scoring you scored well in your boards or whatever. But not because you don't know it, but not because you're dumb, right? Because this is something which is really new for you. So don't be disheartened if you're starting with a 50 or a 60, because you will eventually cross the 100 mark. But for that, you have to keep taking the mocks every day. You shouldn't be bored of it, that I'm not scoring much, I'm always getting a 50 or standing at the lowest position in my class. So you shouldn't be disheartened, and you should try to set weekly or monthly targets, that if I'm getting 60 right now, I have to aim for a 70 next time, or for an 80 next time. So by this process, slowly you will are getting 100 out of 150 or 110. It's not something that is impossible. A lot of people do get that marks, right? So you have to keep setting small targets for you. And while checking a mock, whether you have done well or not, see, the overall score is not the only factor of deciding whether you have done a good whether you have done well in your mocks or not. Of course, the overall score is the ultimate factor in the main exam, but for mocks you should try to analyze other factors also, the ratio of correct to incorrect answers, and the time taken for a particular section, if it is according to the time that you have allotted yourself, that I'll complete the English section in this much time or not. So you should try to keep noting down the time. You should try to set a particular time, and you should always check whether you have completed that section in that amount of time or not. Also, as I said earlier, the amount of time that you spend in giving a mock, the same amount of time you should spend in correcting a mock also. It's not that you get an answer key, you just tick the right answers and cross the wrong answers and give yourself a score. No, the core idea of mocks is not to test what you know, it's to test what you don't know. It's to make you practice, and also at the same time help you understand what your mistakes are, as Albina said, what your weak areas are. So the GK questions that you see that you've answered incorrectly, you should quickly jot down in your notebook. And there are some tricks and tips in maths and logical reasoning, which would be given in the answer key, because of which you didn't get the right answer, and that the key got the right answer. So if maybe the chapter is familiar to you, but the trick that they have applied, the technique that they have applied, that is not familiar to you. So you should note down that as well. So dedicating the same amount of time, maybe more, to analyzing and correcting your mocks, that is very important. Well, because that's the whole purpose of giving mock tests.
Okay. Now, I have a few questions coming up more from the students. This was my set of questions that I had collated from the Google Forms that I had circulated among the students. I had curated them. Now, a few other questions like this is, so any one of you has any other questions, you can very well type it in the chat box, and then I'll ask those questions to both Arvina and Soumya, and then I would love to hear their answers. So the next 5. So here I have some questions coming up. Arvina, I'll take this question from Harsh. He says, is life at a law school very, very hectic? One. And second, he asks, do you need some special skill set before entering a law school?
Okay, so first question I'll handle, is it hectic? Yes, I'm going to be honest, it's hectic. But again, it depends on you, whether you take it upon yourself to actually do all of the things that law school has to offer for you. And I think you should. So given that it could be hectic at times, should that be a sign of worry for you now as an aspirant? I think no. Because honestly, you're going to enjoy all of it. When you come back home from your vacations, you're going to miss a lot of that stuff that you do at college, right? So don't worry about it. It's not like a very, what do you call a quote unquote chill scene. There will be times where you'll have to tackle so many things at one side. Like for example, moot internals go on, and moot internals is a very hectic process for you to like get selection for like good moots and all, right? And then sometimes your not just challengers or internals, your actual moots are going on, or you have a law review submission, And these external things don't really care about like whether your internal viva is going on, or whether like have one presentation in one subject. So you can't be very microscopic, right? And you have to handle a lot of things at the same time. But the best part about law school is, if you're willing, it will teach you how to do that. You will see that almost everyone around you is sort of juggling two or the three things. It will never be the same thing. So you are in law review, the other person is mooting, right? And they you have equal number of sort of engagements. You both have one presentation to make today, but your electives are different, so you have different submissions, but you do have submissions. So everybody around you will be doing and juggling and leading sort of like a hectic life, but that's okay. You will learn how to do it. The second question being about the skill set, right? Yeah, definitely. Like some skill sets, if you do have them, they come in handy. For example, communication skill is one thing that matters a lot in law school, okay? And we have to be just honest about it. It does. And the thing is, that is exactly where my suggestion would come in. Like there are people who have done this in school, and they would continue this streak of being involved in like organizing and managing and talking to people and whatnot in college also. And there are people who haven't, and they think that I'm not quite good at it, and I don't have to be. They tell themselves it's okay, or like, oh, I'll never be able to do it. But no, you have to push yourself and be involved in those activities, because even if like you don't have that skill set, you don't have like, communication is not the only thing. Talking to people is not it's a good thing, but again, there are other skill sets that you learn when you're working on the ground. So if you do not have them, it's completely all right. It's not gonna backfire on you, as long as you're willing to push yourself and learn those skill sets, because law school does offer you a lot of chance. Like we had people there who come from the Hindi belt, or who come from, say, the northeastern or the southern area, and they're not very well versed in, say, English or Hindi, and they do perfectly fine. They learn so quickly, and there isn't a thing that will stop them, or will be like a like a what do you say, disadvantage for them compared to others. So they learned. So you have to be there, pushing yourself extra harder if you're not that outgoing type student in school like I was. And if you do that, you will certainly learn like the skill sets. And of course, there are seniors to help you. Get in touch, reach out, and you can easily learn the skill sets.
Oh, perfect. Perfectly well said, Arvina. Soumya, there is one question from Aman. He wishes to ask, what skills should one have as a person to crack the CLAT exam? What skills one should have in order to crack the CLAT exam?
I feel you should have a reading habit. You should not look at a big long article and think it's gonna take up a lot of my time, or I'm not in the mood right now to read it. Even if you are reading it casually, not noting down things, or not remembering things, but a casual reading of the newspaper every morning or after you come back from school, that is going to help you. If you are not able to remember what you read, but it will help you in a way that it will increase your reading speed. It will give you a sort of practice, because this is such an exam where you will spend almost the entire 2 hours reading stuff, right? So a lot of people, they they have never read the newspaper. They don't like reading books or novels, and they uh, or or even stuff online. So developing a reading habit, this is some skill. Even if you don't have it right now, you can obviously develop it. This is something that can be developed by anyone. So this is one skill, and the only skill that I think is very important to crack the CLAT is developing a habit of reading. It can be anything, even if you're not reading a big book or a novel, but reading random articles that come on your phone, or in the newspaper, or some books, or some magazines, or anything. You can start with whatever that interests you. If reading hardcore legal stuff or news articles do not interest you that much, you can start with reading magazines, or uh, small storybooks or something. But you should read, because one question, the earlier question, what is one skill set that is required in the college? This is one skill set that is really required in the college also. The reading and knowing about what's happening around you, because there you will meet so many kind of people who will be so aware and knowing of what is happening around them, that you'll start to feel a little out of place. So to combat that problem, you should develop a reading habit if you haven't developed it till now.
Okay. So I'll take 2 to 3 more questions from the students. I believe a lot of questions are coming in, but I'll stick to 3 questions more. I believe both Arvina and Soumya would be getting tired now, answering a lot of questions today. It is looking like a moot court, it seems. Okay, this question is from Anubhav, and he's asking a very simple question, I would say, but that is a very troubling question. How should I remember dates for the GK section? Arvina, if you can answer that question. How should I remember dates for the GK section?
Oh God. Okay. Okay, that's a good question actually. What you can do again is what I did. Like, and it wasn't like I was successful 100% at it. What helps is grouping down things, right? If you're talking about, say, organization, what was it like founded or something, group together such questions and make a list. Like, visuals help a lot. You can't you have to view it a lot of times to familiarize yourself with it, and only then will you be able to remember it. In your head, it's very difficult to do it. So group these things together so that you have context, and you can also play these little games like, oh, okay, NABARD was this year, oh, RBI was this year, oh, so 10 years later this. So grouping help gives you that context. And apart from that, it just has to be like a lot of probably, I don't know, this sounds childish, but probably if you're having trouble particularly with a set of dates, stick it on a place where it's visible, and constantly looking at it, say, it will help you remember eventually, because it works that way. Our mind does work that way. Otherwise, it's very difficult. Date is like a very abstract thing to remember without the background of it. So that way.
Can I answer this too?
Go ahead.
Perfectly.
Can I answer? Like Arvina said, you should be able to connect the date with something. So what I did was we all know major history events, right? Like from when to when World War I happened, and when to when World War II. Like after Second World War, UN was founded. So naturally, it has to be the year 1945. And also with regards to India's history, that independence was in 1947, the constitution came in 1950. So you try to, whatever that you read, you try to connect them with those particular landmark events, that the dates for which you will not forget. You will not forget 15th August 1947. You will not forget Second World War 1939 to 1945, right? And also try to, what I did, maybe a little bit childish, but I tried to relate that date to someone's birthday. Like in October, UN was founded. October is my mother's birthday. So the next time that I see a question about UN, I immediately think of my mother. So this is...
Soumya, I have lost your voice. Soumya?
Hello.
Yes, Soumya, you are now audible.
Yes, sir. So am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, Soumya.
I don't know what happened. So yeah, relating the dates with someone's birthday or some anniversary or some important day in your life will be very helpful, because visuals help. When you see a question and you think about someone, you immediately go back to that notes that you've prepared, and that figure, that date comes in your mind. It's printed right in front of you. So the trick is to associate everything the dates that you study with something, some event, something, because even if you don't remember the date, you will remember that event, you will remember that person, and eventually the date will come in front of your eyes. So yeah.
Okay, Arvina and Soumya, I believe both of you can answer this question. This is a question put forward by Nandini. She's asking this question like, once I move out of Jamshedpur to a national law university, I get into a different environment, a different place. How challenging is it, and how do you adapt to a changed environment as well as focus on your studies? Arvina, if you can answer that first, and then I'll take it up with Soumya's views.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's a very pertinent question, right? I was a kid who had never really stayed away from my home ever. Like I hadn't stayed without my parents. I hadn't gone on like excursions or anything like that. So obviously it was very difficult. But then again, you see, the thing is, one time I was doing my English project. I remember it was the first few days, and they were teaching us about various citation methods like OSCOLA and APA, and like Howard Blue Book and all. And I was like, oh my God, what have I done? And there was also the environment, okay, because there will be people around you who would be like, who seem to know at least, everything. And you're like, I have done like a huge blunder. I don't fit in here. And I don't want to do this citation. Like I called up my mom and I was like, please, I think I've done like a huge mistake. I'm not going to do it. But then you realize when you talk to people, the key is to talk to people, and you realize that everybody around you is facing it, right? And that sort of helps in some sort of way, because yeah, you're like a bunch of like 100 or like whatever your strength would be, depending on which MLU, of students who all of you are insecure, all of you are sort of scared. Like some of you probably pretend not to be, but then at the end of the day, we are all like first years and we are all like new to all of this. And eventually, by there is no formula or trick to not have that feeling. It is a very sinking feeling, and it will stay with you for like at least a month or so. And then you see that before you realize, you're already set in that place, and I trust me, it will happen to you also. It does happen to all of us. And I remember when I was coming back for vacation, like my first vacation, I actually felt bad leaving my friends, and like the kind of, so whatever change in environment it does to you, for that the newfound independence that you get makes up for it. And trust me, it's beautiful as long as you use it beautiful, like well, and obviously don't misuse it and all. But your independence is something that you really really come to like and cherish. And you get yeah, you do find your space, and it happens, I would say.
Perfect. Very well answered. I remembered my college days while I was listening to you, Arvina. Okay, Soumya, I like your perspective also on this, because this is a very, very important question that a lot of people will be dreaming of or dreading of. Either ways, both can be. I want my independence, but still I am fearful of a new environment.
Right.
So, what is your take on that?
Going from a small town like Jamshedpur in a national law university where people come in from all the parts of India, uh, the colleges have a mixed population of people from small cities and people from big cities, and some from Hindi belts and some from the southern part of India. So it's very natural to feel out of place, very natural to feel a little bit scared. I remember in classrooms, there were some people who used to speak a lot when the teacher used to ask them a question. They always had answers, and I thought I wouldn't be able to stand up and speak so much in the first few days of my class. But gradually I realized it's not because I don't know those answers, it's because I am a bit shy, I am a bit introvert. So you should never feel that you know anything less or less than the other people in your batch, because they're all your age, they have all cleared the same exam and have come there. So it's not the question of knowledge shouldn't disturb you. Obviously the question of communication skills and how outwardly you are, that can be very subjective from person to person. So I wouldn't suggest everybody to be very extrovert or be very outwardly to in a matter for you to fit in, because you will always find people of how you are,
Yeah.
like my friends, all my friends are somewhat similar to me. They're also a little bit shy and a little bit introvert. So I found them, they found me. So you will also eventually find friends. And one suggestion that I would give to the all the new people, all the aspirants is, you should try to talk to as many people as you can in your first year, because after a point groups are formed in the batches, and you don't really feel like interacting with the senior, thinking कि पूरे साल तो बात नहीं किया, अब क्या जाके बात करें. So first year is the thing where even if you talk to the super seniors to the fifth years, they won't mind. They won't ever mind. They'll be willing to help, and you can just talk to all the people in your hostel or in your wing or in your classes, because no one will judge, no one will be shy to talk to you. If you introduce yourself that I'm Soumya, hi, I'm from Jamshedpur, they'll always introduce them back. So the first few months is very crucial. It decides who your friends are going to be, how many friends you're going to have, and which seniors you're going to interact with. So that is, even if you are a bit shy at school, even if you are a bit introvert, but I would suggest to be very open in the first few months, to talk to as many people as you can, and after that, of course, you can live your life as you want. But because you're going to stay for 5 years in that place, you're going to have to interact with those particular people, see those faces every day from morning till evening in the classes, and then at the hostels also. So it's better to start talking from the beginning, not be very closed up and shelled up and thinking of home and thinking of school friends all the time, because now school is over. You are in this place, you're going to be here for 5 years, so it's better to start accepting that and start making friends there.
Perfect, Soumya. Perfect. Listening to you people, it is a very happy feeling. Okay, I am recollecting my college days, my hostel days. Okay, one last question. Now, this is the last question. I believe I have already taken 90 minutes here. One last question, Armina. This is from Nihal. He's saying that many say if you are not able to make
Sorry,
to the top,
Nihal. Yeah.
yeah, Nihal. So he's saying that many say if you are not able to make to the top 15 NLUs, then better don't think of it.
And better don't.
Think of it. So if you are not able to get into the top 15 NLUs, then don't get into an NLU. What would be your take on that, and what would your suggestion be?
So if you are sorted in your head that NLUs do offer me a certain set of opportunities that I'm sure not to get at places other than NLUs, I am not going to tell you otherwise, because it is right and it is correct. It's factual. But at the same time, I'm also not going to be like your life is over, dude, if you don't make it to the top 15, because of course it's not. Of course, there are people who, like, for example, the person that I met during my Shardul Amachand internship in Delhi. She was from Patna University, and she was also doing a 5-year course, and she was talking about doing LLM, right? She was in a 5th year, I was in my 4th year. So she had mooted, she had done every other thing that like an NLU student does, and she was preparing for higher education, and she was telling me that, I want to give CLAT again for LLM and try to get into an NLU this time. And guess what she did? And she did extremely well in her LLM. And I did talk to her, like we had exchange numbers, and she made it to NUJS as well as she made it to NLUD. And now she's there, and she's like, she has that set of opportunities. So your path will really depend on you, and don't let like anyone, like be it us or anyone, tell you that no, this can't happen and all. You have to think about what you want out of your NLU experience, and if you think no other college can offer you that experience, then yeah, drop a year and like try again. But if you want to do law, and it's something that there are certain things that you want to do, and it really doesn't depend on like the kind of college that you come from, then go for it. It really doesn't matter, because there are people who are from NLU, and you can't really tell a difference. Like they don't probably use like the opportunity, and it's completely fine. They want to do something else with their life, and NLU doesn't really offer them. I had friends in my batch, like in the first, second year, who were like, they cracked CLAT and they were in NUJS and all, but they dropped out because they felt like NLU wasn't for them, right? And they dropped out, and they're doing something else then. They dropped out in the middle of the course. So it really depends on you. What are the things that you want out of your 5 years? And if you think only NLUs can offer that, then sure, take a year and try again. But if not, that's not the end of the road for sure.
Can I add to that?
Okay. Soumya, I will also like your take on that, because it is kind of a life lesson that that both of you are giving here right now. So it would be a very important take from your perspective as well, as to if I'm not making it to the top 15 NLU, should I drop the idea?
as Arvina said, if you have really made up your mind that this is what the only top 15 NLUs is what I deserve or what I really want, then of course, me or her saying anything won't change your mind. But to other people or to the person also, if there is some iota of doubt in your mind, then I would like to say is there, apart from NLUs, there are some really good other universities also, private universities also, which offers the same kind of opportunities that an NLU can. I also interned at top law firms of the country, and like AZB and Partners and Luthra, and there a lot of people were from Symbiosis and from Jindal, from the private universities, right? And they didn't get that internship by any source or something. They also had the proper procedure in their universities, and then they got it on merit. And there were really a good amount of associates working in those firms also, from Symbiosis and Jindal and Bharati Vidyapeeth also. So clearly that shows that not only NLUs, but some of the finest private universities also, they also offer really good opportunities. And I would like to give an example from my life is when I gave CLAT in 2014 for the first time. I got a rank of around 2000, and I thought there are only 1600 seats and I wouldn't get a seat in the top 15 NLUs, and I just decided to drop a year. But I would suggest that if you're getting a rank somewhere there, you should enter the counseling process at least, because it's very the entire number, the figures is very dicey. Like Arbina said, a lot of people drop out of their courses, and a lot of people just decide they don't want to pursue this. They're giving the engineering exam, and side by side they've given CLAT also. So you will never know how and when an opportunity will pop up. So not entering the counseling process was something that I regretted. I shouldn't have done it. I should have just entered it, because I came to know that at that my rank 2000 rank, I could have gotten some NLU at least, because people in that rank did get something. So that would have saved me a year. I could have there are the next question is taking a drop year. So obviously, if you feel that you deserve a better NLU, you deserve a better rank, you can take a drop year. But you can join some college and then also prepare, because as I said, this is an exam in which you just need to dedicate some amount of hours every day. So in HNLU, our classes used to be from 8 to 2:30, and after 2:30 you were free. If you are in some activities, obviously you'll be busy, but if you're not, then you're completely free after 2:30 and you can prepare. So we had a lot of students in first year who were preparing CLAT, and then they cleared NUJS, they cleared NLS also. There was one person who cleared NLS even in the next year while studying in HNLU and while getting a second rank. So it's not something that is unheard of. It's not something that you can't do. So if you think that you have that capability to get a better NLU at the next time while still managing the studies of that particular college, you should definitely join some college in the first year. And if you're getting a lower ranked NLU, then also you can join it and then prepare for the next time. But thinking that only NLUs will give me the opportunities that I'm looking for, that is, in my opinion, wrong. Because now there are a lot of other colleges also, a lot of other universities which are as good as NLUs. You won't get an NLU tag, but the other opportunities that you're looking for, you'll surely get them. And I have seen thousands of examples of that in all my internships and offices and everywhere. So yeah.
Perfect. So I'll call an end to the session. It has been a good 100 minutes. So I have clocked 100. All of you have clocked 100 minutes, and 100 minutes of talking. I believe as lawyers into moot courts and into debating and into discussing, both of you have been phenomenal today. I love listening to each and every bit of whatever you had to say. But the life lessons that I got, generally I get it from people who would be 10 years older than you. So me giving those life lessons makes a lot of sense, but you people giving those brilliant ideas, I was really astounded. Really nice, Soumya, Arvina. It was wonderful listening to you. If you ask me to picture it, I still picture both of you as 2015 children. I would put it this way, because I have not seen you in the last 5 years. So my picturization of both of you is 2015. That frame is stuck. But today, listening to you, I feel both of you are very mature and will definitely do really well in life.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much. Thank you
sir.
so much.
Thank you
So
for
best of
having
luck
us
both
here.
of you. And I believe the other students who are here, they would have really learned from the experiences that you have had and would apply some of the learnings from this session and come out wonderfully well.
All,
So I
and
just
I
want
would
to
also
say
like
one
to,
thing. Yeah,
Ah,
yeah. Go on,
yes,
Arvina.
Soumya. Okay.
You
So
go
I
on.
just wanted to say that all the best, you guys, and trust me, you guys are equally smart. You guys are all like able enough to actually sit here and spew advices like we did. It's just a matter of time. So believe in yourself and all the best. Yeah.
Yeah, even I would like to say that I know the COVID situation is tense, and a lot of people tend to lose their zeal or motivation towards giving these exams. But I just want to say lastly that law is a really good career option. We both will agree to it. And there are some finest universities in our country with great faculty and teaching, great campuses, and some of the brightest young minds, they go there and they study. So you'll surely have a great time in the coming 5 years. You just need to prepare thoroughly, give the
Yeah.
exam fearlessly, and you should have faith that you'll crack it. All the best.
thank you, all of you. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you, Soumya. Thank you,
Bye
Arvina.
bye.
Thank you, sir.
I hope we'll meet soon, everyone soon. Right. Thank you,
Bye.
all of you. Take
Bye
care.
bye.
Have a nice day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.